Gonzo Education, Chapter 4, Berkeley or Bust, Part 2. We made it another 20 miles before the car started to overheat, so we pulled over and 10 minutes later JD pulled up to save the day. He asked if we wanted to smoke pot, so me, Lisa, and Elizabeth got in his station wagon while Michael worked on the car. I suggested Elizabeth sit up front with JD because I'd become kind of protective of Lisa, and I considered the possibility of JD and Elizabeth hooking up, figuring she'd have some company, and Lisa and I could finally be alone. JD wouldn't have been Elizabeth's first choice, or her second or third, but the girl needed someone. She wouldn't have even spoken to JD if they were strangers in the same town, but they met on a road trip where anything's possible. When you're on a road trip, you're bombarded with things you've never seen and won't see again. Road trips teach you to enjoy the little things you normally wouldn't, like JD. JD used this smoking session to make his move. It was obvious I was with Lisa, and Michael and Elizabeth were clearly not together, so JD got a chance to break out a bottle of Appalachian Charm, showering Elizabeth with compliments. "You're the prettiest girl west of the Mississippi," he told her. "One day I'm going to buy you a double wide trailer and paint it pink because of your womanhood." JD was on his way to Berkeley and said he wouldn't be hard to find. He'd be at the Mediterranean Cafe every day. The Med is a well-known coffee shop off Telegraph Avenue popular with poets and writers. Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg used to frequent there. Later that evening, everyone's eyes got wide when we approached San Francisco. The traffic got heavier, lights scattered the hillside, and we started to pick up strange hipster radio stations. Everyone had butterflies in their stomach, but our nervousness turned to chaos when Michael drove right through San Francisco, over the bridge, and mistakenly ended up in a bad neighborhood in Oakland, California. Instead of just admitting he made a wrong turn, he went berserk and showed us just how crazy he could be. We begged him to pull over so we could ask directions, but instead he cackled until he started losing his voice, drove on the wrong side of the road, and punched himself in the face until his nose spewed blood. If Michael doesn't get his coffee and cigarettes, he acts like it's his birthright has been stolen, and he's a vigilante on a mission to destroy the wrongdoers who prevented him from enjoying his vices. We were screaming at him to pull over while he sped 30 miles over the speed limit, barreling through red lights like Gene Hackman in The French Connection. The car finally screeched to a halt at a check cashing store on a shady corner where Michael yelled at us to get out. He'd parked sideways and inadvertently had the windshield wipers on. A group of frayed men, looking for a handout or reason to kill, crept up to our little two-door car in the intimidating East Oakland night. Everyone yelled, "Drive, Michael, drive, let's get out of here." "You said you wanted out, so get out," he barked. One of the men gave Lisa the universal signal to roll down her window, but she vigorously shook her head no. Her dreadlocks wagged back and forth and reminded me of Rolf the dog, and I inappropriately began laughing. Everyone stopped what they were doing, even Michael and the killer bums, and looked at me. Then one guy started tapping on the glass, and Lisa let out a high-pitched scream. It sent the guy running, and Michael finally sped out of the parking lot to the road. Someone threw him a cigarette, and he calmed down long enough to pull over and ask directions. A gas station worker showed us how to get to UC, and 5 minutes later, Michael found a parking spot on the side of Telegraph Avenue to sleep off his bad mood. The rest of us went walking around the neighborhood we'd driven across the country to see. It was late and we were tired, but we had made it to Berkeley, California. Telegraph Avenue is full of interesting characters at all hours. It was the middle of the night, but we immediately knew it was worth the drive. The second we got out of the car, we saw a guy riding a bike with a cat on his shoulder, a man in a flowery dress yelling hateful things, and an elderly woman with pigtails on roller skates. The first person we spoke to was a girl wearing a University of Texas baseball cap. We told her we were from Texas, and I said I went to UT. Lisa and Elizabeth laughed and told her I was lying. She smiled and said she was a film student who was in Berkeley for the summer. She asked where we were staying, and I told her we were homeless vagabonds. "Perfect," she said. "Berkeley's the homeless capital of America." After late-night cappuccinos, we walked back to the car where we found Michael peacefully asleep. The rest of us got in the tiny Geo and tried to sleep too, but we were too anxious and tossed and turned. The next morning, we were all grumpy, smelly, and sleep-deprived. I followed Lisa and Elizabeth to a laundromat Michael had parked by. Elizabeth and I got in a minor argument over the amount of laundry detergent to use, but the second Michael woke up, things exploded. Elizabeth wouldn't give him a cigarette, and Michael went off verbally, calling her every name in the book. It was like a pit bull tearing up a rabbit. He brought her to tears, and Lisa comforted her. I won't go another mile with this psycho, Elizabeth screamed. Lisa wanted to ditch Michael too, and she said I had 2 minutes to decide whether I was going to go with them or my brother. If I let the girls go by themselves, I wouldn't ever see them again. But if I let Michael alone in a strange city with no money, he'd be screwed. I found myself running back and forth across the street from Michael's car to the bus stop Lisa and Elizabeth had set up at. Trying to play peacemaker, I felt we could talk it out. My goal was to keep the group intact. I brought us together and I didn't want us to split up. I'm not staying, Michael yelled. I'm going back to Texas. I explained to him that he couldn't drive 2,500 miles with no gas. I was getting some cash wired soon, so I told him if he could be patient and wait a few days, then I'd have $50 to help him get started. Let them cool off and meet us at the Med in 2 hours, I told him. Then the girls jumped on a city bus. Its doors shut and I went running after it down the sidewalk. You better be there, I yelled to Michael as I ran up to the bus. There was traffic and I was in good shape, so I kept up right behind the bus for the next 10 blocks. The driver finally stopped and Lisa and Elizabeth got off laughing. They'd been watching me run after them from the back bus window. I was out of breath but proved my loyalty. We got to the Med Cafe and found JD high on acid. He was surprised to see us, despite the fact that he told us to meet him there. The girls whined about Michael, but JD calmed them down by speaking in parables. He had a gentle way to him, like he had flakes of hillbilly zen falling from his shoulders. His dilated eyeballs made him look unworldly as well. A box of rain will ease your pain and love will see you through, he said, quoting the Grateful Dead. I'm going to show you all the most beautiful things in the Bay. I'd rather see New York, I told him, being an asshole. Lisa and Elizabeth were carrying their huge bags, and we had a couple of hours to kill before Michael met us at the coffee shop. So JD invited us to a University of California frat house where his Appalachian cousin had been renting a room for the summer. I had a panic attack seconds after we got there. The ground felt like it was getting crooked beneath me, and an earthquake seemed imminent. I was worried about Michael. I left him alone without a dollar or a friend and knew I had to save him before the big one hit. The frat house was packed with Berkeley hipsters, artists, and homeless types. There were drugs everywhere. We only smoked weed and they were happy to offer. The second we got there, people started passing us pipes, joints, and edibles. It's surprising and a little unsettling just how many doors two pretty girls can open. Marijuana increases feelings of paranoia, and I was on unfamiliar land without a dollar to my name. My twin brother was somewhere lost in the crowd, and the two girls I was with could ditch me in a second for someone with a couch, a car, or even a plate of food. After we got high in the general areas, JD took us upstairs to meet his Appalachian cousin. She got out of the shower and took her time covering up like an exhibitionist. She was a tall blonde you might consider attractive in an Appalachian mountain kind of way. JD and his cousin were apparently very close, because I'd never seen two relatives so physically affectionate with one another. I sat on the floor while JD, Elizabeth, and Elizabeth sat on the bed. JD's cousin started small talk while she put on her clothes and dried her hair. So, you guys are from Texas, she asked? Just got here? Never been to the city? Now I felt insulted. Who did this girl think she was, assuming we'd never been to a city? No, we might be from Texas, but we've been to cities before, I defensively said. Excuse me, when we say the city here, we mean San Francisco? I always seem to accidentally insult slow-minded people. The girls glared at me, but I was losing it. My panic attack worsened when JD put his arm around Elizabeth and Lisa started sensually bouncing on the fraternity bed. I jumped off the floor and demanded we go find Michael. JD took us back to the coffee shop and Michael showed up 20 minutes later. I asked JD if he'd leave us alone so we could talk. He agreed, and we ordered 4 cappuccinos. Everyone was getting along. We've been through hell together, I told my group. It's been a journey for all of us, and we've all become better people together. I looked at each person individually and took everything I'd learned from motivational scenes and films to pull off a convincing performance. Now, I know we don't always see eye to eye or even get along really, I said, but we came thousands of miles, all the way from little old San Antonio, Texas, and we're the only ones in this entire coffee shop that did that. Nobody could have done what we did, at least not in the way we did it. We're the ones who came from Texas. No one else. I was just stating the obvious, but I said it in a sincere tone that made us feel special, like we accomplished something. I could have been reading the inspirational scene from Independence Day and it wouldn't have mattered. The group was back together, and I even got Michael to apologize to Lisa and Elizabeth. He told them he didn't have any hard feelings, but he wanted to get back to Texas for a girl he was missing. Michael agreed to stay a few days until I got money wired, and JD promised to take us sightseeing all around the bay. He invited us to stay at the UC fraternity house his cousin was staying at, but he said only Lisa and Elizabeth could sleep inside. Michael and I could stay, but we had to sleep on the frat house's back porch and stay out of sight. The next day, JD showed us around. He was a remarkable tour guide and showed us famous Berkeley landmarks like Moe's Books, People's Park, and the University of California. Later that week, he drove us to San Francisco where we saw the Golden Gate Bridge, Peace Park, and Haight-Ashbury. He didn't just take us to the famous landmarks, but he also showed us the cheapest places to eat, where to use public restrooms, and places we could park our car. About a week after we got there, I finally got money wired from Texas. Elizabeth claimed I was lying about it the whole trip and was speechless when it arrived. It was only about $250, but it was enough to give Michael $50 and still have some money left for Lisa and me. As soon as Michael left, JD tried to get Elizabeth alone every chance he got. Lisa and I'd hang around Telegraph Avenue while they drive off different places in his car. Lisa and I loved the scene on Telegraph. We made friends with street people, and we weren't with them, we'd be at the free vegan meals. Someone gave us a flyer for directions to every free plate in Berkeley. Our favorite was Food Not Bombs in People's Park. They've been piling fixings onto plates there for decades. If you want to see the diverse face of homelessness in this country, there's nowhere better than People's Park. We'd see Elizabeth and JD sparingly, but most of the time he'd try to get her alone. Sometimes she'd come back looking really freaked out. She told Lisa she was scared of him and wanted to see her family. A few days later, she told JD she was going back to Texas. He offered to drive her, but she insisted on taking a plane and was there the next day. It was best Elizabeth went home. The girl had enough adventure to last her a lifetime. I wanted to stay in Berkeley permanently, but after Elizabeth left, I knew Lisa would want to go home next. The only way I could convince her to stay was if I had money, so I needed a job. The next day I started working for a telemarketing office selling California newspaper subscriptions. I worked there for a couple weeks. Lisa would walk to work with me and wait outside the office building with JD's dog. I thought things were going good and she was going to stay in Berkeley with me, but then JD started talking about driving to Texas. He asked if we wanted to come. I didn't want to leave, but Lisa cried and said she missed her cat. She begged me to go back with her. I'll break up with Javier the second we get back and then you can move in. Will he be okay with this, I asked. He doesn't have a choice, she said. I call the shots. For our last night in Berkeley, JD got me and Lisa 2 hits of LSD and left us alone in the hills. Lisa and I shared a sleeping bag and a profound acid trip which put things in perspective. We had no clue what our mission was about until the LSD hit and things became clear. We spent the rest of the night laughing hysterically to the thought of driving across the country for no particular reason. The absurdity of it, we hadn't even noticed until then. The next day, we packed up JD's wagon with his dog and our gear. Before we left, I pulled him inside and whispered, Lisa really wants to go back to Texas, but I'm not going to let her ride back, alone, with you. He wouldn't look me in the eye while I stated my stipulations. We're going to sit in the back, and you're going to sit up front and drive, I said. I want you to go the straightest route possible, only stopping for gas, and keep the radio on at all times, even if it's static. Sure thing, partner, whatever you say. JD was mature and dignified. We had an uneventful drive on I-10 East when we finally ran out of gas at the Welcome to Kerrville sign. Out of money, we were going to have to panhandle. JD wanted either me or Lisa to go with him and walk to the gas station, but I was being a jerk. I'm not letting Lisa walk down the freeway with you, and I can't go because I'm not going to leave her alone in the car. Shucks, Greg, I'll take care of her, he said. You can trust me. Sorry, not happening. All right, if that's the way you want it, he said, civilly. JD grabbed the gas can, apologized to Lisa, and strolled down the highway with nothing but a smile and a positive attitude. Hurry up, I shouted coldly before he left. As soon as he was out of sight, Lisa told me I was being an asshole. She said I had no reason to distrust JD. We bickered like an old couple for an hour before JD got back, chilling us out as usual. Texas is great. Everybody's so kind and welcoming, he said. Don't trust anyone, I told him. He had a can full of gas, but it wasn't enough to get to San Antonio. So we drove to the next McDonald's and sat in their parking lot for an hour. Lisa and I asked people for cigarettes while JD used the payphone to call Elizabeth. Someone struck up a conversation with an elderly couple, one of which was a retired college professor, and Lisa told them about her plans to go to UT and study botany. I have a 4.0 GPA so far at a community college, she bragged. I'd like to go to UT too, someday, I said, trying to join the conversation. We didn't ask them for any money, but we told them our story and they gave us $20. We ordered a pound of french fries, filled the car with gas, and got back on I-10 east to San Antonio. An hour away, I began seeing familiar landmarks and road signs, but I started getting nervous when I realized I didn't have anywhere to go. Lisa and I were planning to live together, but I had to give her a few days to break the news to Javier. Lisa and JD were looking at me for instructions, but the only place I could think of going was Janet and Jonathan's house. Neither was happy to see us. We caught them off guard. They only met Lisa once, and I'd never even heard of JD. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just wanted to tell someone what I'd gone through. I tried to take the edge off of the lighthearted story, but it didn't help, and they asked us to leave. Lisa told JD to take her to her parents' house, and for the first time in over a month, we were going to be apart. I don't want to be homeless without you, I told her. We don't have to be homeless, ever, she said. Javier will move out in a few days, and you can move in. I had time to kill, and I knew how to sleep outside, but I didn't feel like visiting the same arcades, libraries, and haunts I'd gone to years before. I wanted to chill somewhere new and unfamiliar, like Berkeley. The closest thing I could find was the area north of downtown off Broadway. I spent the next week loitering around central San Antonio, waiting for Javier to move out. I basically lived out of the downtown library. I walked up and down the Riverwalk a few times a day. I slept in stairwells and took naps in Brackenridge Park. I was dirty, tired, and beat, but I had a great attitude, looking forward to the life I had planned with my new girlfriend. A few days later, I moved in and became Lisa's official boyfriend. Javier left most of his stuff, and I started wearing his clothes. Lisa didn't mind my new wardrobe, but she got really upset when I carved my initials into a piece of furniture his grandfather had made. Lisa and Javier were still friends, and they spent a good portion of their day together with identical classes at community college. If I was really as crazy about her as I said I was, I probably would have been a little jealous. She was spending more time with him than me. For a few weeks, I stayed home while Lisa went to school. I didn't do much besides smoke pot and watch her VHS movie collection. One day, she came home complaining that I needed a job, so I got my old gig at the telemarketing office back and a new second job working at a haunted house on Grayson Street. I spent all my time working and didn't give Lisa as much attention as I should. I was new to relationships and I didn't really know how to act. Javier gave her the attention she needed, and one day she came home from school and said she wanted to break up with me. I put my arms around her and kissed her neck. No, don't do this, I said. I'll change and you'll see an affectionate side to me. It's too late, she said. You missed out. Give me another chance, I pleaded. You just want the apartment, she said, and you can have it. Honestly, I was relieved. Lisa and I only had a good romance when there was the adventure of the road and the western skies as a backdrop for our movie. We were better friends. The outside stimulation and the thrill of the road is what made us more. A month later, it was like the trip never happened. The four kids who had set off to California were doing the exact same thing they were doing before they left. Lisa was back with Javier, Michael was living at Janet and Jonathan's, and Elizabeth had just gotten back from a traumatic experience in North Carolina with JD and his backcountry relatives. I stayed friends with Lisa. She wanted back rent for the time we lived together, so I helped her deliver the newspaper every day until I paid it off. Some of the best conversations we had happened during that early morning route driving around in her blue two-door Geo Metro hatchback. After I paid her what I owed, I continued helping for free. That was chapter 4 of my book, Gonzo Education. It was written by me. It takes place over a 15-year period. It starts when I drop out of high school, and it ends when I graduate from one of the top journalism schools in the United States, the University of Texas. This book is available for free on Kindle, and you can get it on Amazon.com for less than $10, I think $6 or $7. So go ahead and help support me in this channel. Order this book. You'll be glad you did. It'll be one of the best $6 that you spent. I'm really proud of getting my education, especially what I had to go through, but I'm even more proud of writing this book and doing it all on my own without the help of an editor or anything else. I just took what they taught me at the University of Texas. I received a degree in journalism, so they taught me about nonfiction writing. So I took the skills and applied them to writing this book. So if I hope you enjoy it, and go ahead and check it out on Amazon. Feel free to write a review if you like. Once again, my name is Gregory Brandt, and you can check out my other channels. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and smash that subscribe button. Have a nice day.